Commodore Mark Adam Miller. The Commodore comes from me being the president of the local Star Trek club called the USS Hephaestus here in Birmingham, Alabama. We are part of Starfleet International. I've been a president of the club for about 10 years, so through that, I've gone up through the ranks. I started out as a captain, I'm now a Commodore, which I just got last May. So I've been a Commodore for about a year now. So, been in Star Trek probably since I've been 5 or 6 years old. I can't say that I really watched it in its originally, because when it was originally on, I was 3 to 5 years old. I was born in 64 and it came out in 66 to 69. So I would have been 2 to 4 5 years old during it. But probably in a lot of the reruns and many fights between me and my brother in trying to watch it, because there was always an episode I was missing. And I was always trying to see it, and Johnny wanted to watch, my brother Johnny always wanted to watch Gilligan's Island. Gilligan's Island was always on the opposite, and of course Star Trek's a half-hour program, and Gilligan's Island's a half-hour program. So believe it or not, the 2 hardest ones that I could never see were Trouble with Tribbles and Day of the Dove.
Those are both fan favorites too, right? I mean, those are kind of well-known episodes, and it's usually when it was in syndication, they never seem to play the really great episodes. You always miss them.
Yeah. I never could. There was 79 episodes, which is surprising for syndication, because normally they want 100, because they divide them up into 25 episode packs, if I remember correctly. So that means there would be 2 packets go in one place, 2 packets, and then they feel like in my area, which would be Dayton and Cincinnati, if you'd get 2 packets for one series to go to Dayton, and 2 would be in Cincinnati, and then they'd switch every 6 months. With Star Trek, I'm not sure. I think there was only 3 packets, which 79 episodes, 3 packets of 25, you still have 4 episodes that you miss on a regular basis. So sometimes I think they would get cut out on that type of thing. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Wasn't sure what was going on, so I didn't know exactly how to prepare for this. Trivia-wise, I think most people know that the Vulcan hand sign and the Vulcan pinch were Leonard Nimoy's contribution. Some may not know that the Vulcan hand sign is actually from the Jewish faith, that when you put them both together, this means God. This one is Shin, and I never can remember what the other one is. I have to look it up every time, but I think it comes down to El Shaddai. If you remember the song made popular by Amy Grant. Both Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner are Jewish. Not many people know that William Shatner. In his later life, one of his biggest projects was doing Leonard Nimoy's biggest project was he was into photography, and he put together a couple different books about Judaism, especially the female form of God, and showing it through the different Jewish women that he took pictures of, which is a beautiful book if you ever come across it. So that's some of my trivia. What do you got, John? You got something to stump me with.
I am John Anderson. I'm just a lifelong Trekkie and an actor who just desperately wishes he was on Star Trek. I am not a Commodore or a captain. I like to think of myself as a Q.
Trivia-wise, if you ever been a member, or if you ever go through the Hephaestus page on Facebook, we do have a newsletter, and John pops up every once in a while as the John Q.
All right.
He always tries to differentiate himself from Q. He wants to be known as the lovable Q,
That's right.
and the one who's trying to help humanity along, not condemn them in judgment. So if I can't remember when the last time you popped up in a story, it would have been last year sometime. You even brought the Stan Q with you at one point.
I just saw Madeline pop up the fact that, yes, Leonard Nimoy did do an art show at UAB, and I went to that, and it was awesome.
That would have been neat.
Exhibition there many years ago.
Was it of his artwork or of his photography?
His photos.
Okay.
Photographer.
I'm trying to. I know he's a photographer, but for some reason I think he had some. He did artwork as well.
Here's a weird piece of trivia. Alien Voices, that did the Star Trek books and many sci-fi novels on tape, was also based out of Alabama at one point in Birmingham. They had a recording studio here.
Oh, did not know that. I know that was done by John Delancey, and I can't think of the other.
Speaking of Q.
It was Leonard. I know he and Q, he did Q versus Spock and Q versus Spock 2. Well, Alien Voices did Q versus Spock 2, and that was done at a convention.
Right.
But he got mostly a lot of the Star Trek actors to come on and do parts of that. I have the 3 or 4 that were made. There were not many made. It did not do as well as they had hoped, much to my, because they did very well. My favorite is The Lost World. If you haven't heard that one, I highly recommend looking and trying to see if you can get a copy of that. It's one of my favorite that they do. John Delancey is very prominent in that one.
Is that company's kind of defunct now, isn't it?
Yeah. They only did 4 or 5. Invisible Man, Lost World, First Men in the Moon, the Jules Verne one. It was the Jules. I think it was the Jules Verne one they did. I always get, because H.G. Wells and Jules Verne both did Travels to the Moon. One's First Men in the Moon, the other is Voyage to the Moon. So it must be H.G. Wells, because the First Men in the Moon, I think it was the one. And they did the Invisible Man, Charles Conan Doyle's The Lost World, H.G. Wells, no, it must have been Jules Verne's Voyage to the Moon, Q versus Spock 2. I'm missing one in there. I have to look that one up. But the best one I thought was very good. Was The Lost World. The Voyage to the Moon has William Shatner as the king of the moon people in that. Talking about audio tapes, Patrick Stewart did a audio tape for Christmas Carol, to the point that he was actually did the one-man show that Charles Dickens did, including, as I understand, he also was doing some of the pyrotechnics that H.G. Wells, or not, Charles Dickens did for Christmas Carol in that one-man show, and it would have been very nice. He did do a movie of the Christmas Carol based on what his one-man show was, even though he filled out the other actors.
And that was excellent too.
Yeah. I especially love when Patrick Stewart does his Tiny Tim voice. Piece of trivia on my part. Some people, I am a big fan of 1776, originally done with Daniels. I can't think of Daniels' name. He played the voice of Kit, and he was a doctor in St. Elsewhere. He was also the original John Adams. When they did a revival, Brent Spiner did the revival as John Adams, and I do have the audio, or the CD of that performance. I saw Brent Spiner up in Cincinnati last year in September for a convention, and as I was talking to him, I says I enjoyed him hearing him in 17 say I wish I'd seen him. And I says, do you remember any of it? like even the speech. And he said, and he starts the speech off and goes right into character and gives the sequelacy of one man is called a disgrace, two men are called a law firm, three or more are called a Congress. And it was interesting seeing him still going into, he went for a little bit, and it was nice to hear him and see him give a little characterization in front of me on that. So I do appreciate Brent doing that.
I think my favorite Brent thing he ever did was Night Court, is the Appalachian man talking about his wiener cart and blown away. He had this great, like, long face and gaunt face in those episodes.
Yeah, and then they were supposed to come back in that following season, but then Brent Spiner got Data, and he got Night Court missed out on signing for the next season because he had already signed on to Star Trek.
I think the story with him was that he had said once in an interview that, you know, his agent and he were debating this role. Like, how can you redo Star Trek, man? You can't redo Star Trek. And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just do it for a season, get the paycheck. And if you don't like it, I'll get you out of your contract in a year." That's like terrible. Well, who knew? Data became this iconic science fiction character. I think he kind of broke away even from just the Star Trek nerds. I mean, everybody knows Data.
Right. So, and I think that's part of the reason why you got the part in Independence Day.
Oh, that role was fantastic as well.
Yeah, it's just
a little kooky, weird scientist guy.
What I missed, I think it's in the deleted scene, but it's in the book. He and the Jeff Goldblum character are in the ship, and the Brent Spiner character, Doctor, he was a doctor or something. I want to say Dr. O, but I was Linky or something. He says, "Now this doohickey does this, and this thingamabob does this." And Jeff Goldblum said, "Well, this thingamabob does that." And he says, "No, we're very technical here. This is a doohickey, and this is a thingamabob." It's in the. I believe it's in the cut materials. If you got the DVD of Independence Day, I've seen Brent Spiner do that.
Brent Spiner was really just an underrated actor anyway. If you go out and watch that movie Out to Sea with Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, where he plays the cruise director, the snooty cruise director, I just thought that was a really great role for him too.
Now, which movie is that?
Out to Sea with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau.
Jack Lemmon. I have to check that one out. I have not seen that.
And it's Brent being extremely humorous and funny as this like obnoxious, over-the-top cruise entertainment director. It's fantastic. He's got one of the leads in the movie, and watching his comedy going toe-to-toe with those two comic legends is just fantastic.
Yeah. So, trying to think of other.
Were we taking trivia questions, or were we just kind of?
If Mark wants to come in, Madeline, if you want to let Mark off the hook here, and if Mark has a question, then we'll gladly take any questions Mark Burgess may have, or if anybody else logs in. I don't know if anyone else will log in. So.
Yeah, I sent him a request to unmute if he does want to offer any questions.
Yeah. Or Madeline, if you have any questions, we'll gladly take any questions from you as well.
Listen, I'm not a Star Trek person.
Neither is Stan Daniel.
Huh? Yeah, okay. The only thing I know about Star Trek comes from Voltaire's inappropriate song that I will not mention here because I work for the library.
Okay.
So yeah, that's about the only thing I know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. So you could literally tell me anything. And I'd be like,
coming out
so
this
fascinating.
CBS All Access.
Talking about, I don't know, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, Voltaire. I'll have to look that up sometime. What's interesting, when, I forget which car commercial it was, but Leonard Nimoy and the new Spock,
Zachary Quintos
did a car commercial. And in that car commercial, you hear Leonard Nimoy singing. What he is singing is his ballad of Bilbo Baggins.
Oh, wow.
From a album that he did back late 60s, early 70s
As Spock.
as
Wow.
Spock. And so it's interesting, him reading that, singing that in that. And a lot of people were wondering what he always sang, and not many people knew it. And it was like, oh, no, that's the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins.
What was the thing Shatner did to outdo him in horrible music? He did like a Rocket Man Sinatra type thing, didn't he, at one
I
point?
believe, yeah, he did try to put his own album out, and it was more of him talking through things and singing it.
Right.
So,
He was totally doing the whole Sinatra open collar cigarette, doing the spoken words.
I do know about that one. So yes, it was Rocket Man.
Going back to Brent Spiner, he actually did an album a few years ago called Old Yellow Eyes Is Back.
yeah.
And
Well,
he
not
had
a few years ago. That's about 25, 30, because he did that during, I think he did that like the second or third season of Star Trek. So you're going clear back to the 80s for that.
he did a great version of Blue Skies that he sang in the movie. What was it, Nemesis? I think he actually sang it in Star Trek Nemesis.
I believe so. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep. He must have a good singing voice if he got the part for 1776.
Right.
So, it's interesting of that. One thing interesting about Star Trek, it is a training ground. A lot of the people would allow for the actors, if they wanted to learn to direct, were given points to direct. Jonathan Frakes got his start there. LeVar Burton also. I don't know if I think LeVar Burton had been doing some directing, but that it really solidified him. Of course, Leonard Nimoy got his directing by directing Search for Spock, and then later The Return, the Voyage Home. I mean, not The Return, The Voyage Home. Roxanne Dawson did Voyager, as did Robert McNeil. Robert Duncan McNeil, or is it Robert McNeil Duncan?
Yeah.
Lieutenant Paris.
I believe Tuvok or Tim Russ actually did some directing too, didn't he, on Voyager? And then they came on and did Enterprise and Discovery episodes recently.
Yeah, and that's they continued on that. Roxanne Dawson did several for Enterprise. I don't know. I don't know if she got into Discovery or not. I think she did one for Discovery. Have to check that. But this is one thing that they Avery Brooks did directing. I think Renee did some Deep Space Nine. Armin, I believe, also did. Armin Shimmer, who played Quark, did directing. So that's one thing that Star Trek has always been good at, is trying to cultivate.
Directed a few episodes.
Yeah, to help them direct a few episodes. They get them behind the camera and get them to see what's going on. They shadow a director for like 3 or 4 episodes, and then they're given an episode to do. Was
it Patrick Stewart directed the fan favorite episode Fistful of Datas, the Western episode?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the great Star Trek episodes.
Right.
The Warner Brothers backlot.
Yep.
I do have a question, and this is totally unrelated, but is somebody who has not seen Star Trek and is somehow hosting the Star Trek panel. Where should I start?
That is a good question.
I personally think she should go for Enterprise. Timeline-wise, that would be like the beginning.
Yeah, but
it's not the best.
No, it's not the best.
Next Generation is generally the one that hooks everybody.
Yeah. Next Generation will hook you.
First season.
Well, start with a counter at Farpoint, but then there'd be a couple you'd skip. You definitely want to watch Measure of a Man, which is the second season.
Right. Elementary
Uh,
data. There's great stuff. Sherlock Holmes episodes.
Yeah, the Sherlock Holmes episodes. Um, uh,
If you're more of an action-paced person, you would start, I guess, with Deep Space Nine, like what, season 4, the
yeah.
beginning of season 3 or 4, somewhere around there. That's
If you want to get the flavor of TOS, I'd start off with Trouble with Tribbles and a piece of the action, and then go to the serious of A City on the Edge of Forever.
So I do know what a tribble is because I have been to the Dragon Con vendor halls and seen fuzzy things. I've been like, that's really cute. What is it? And they're like, about a zillion of them in a box. So I do know what a tribble is. And I have seen people cosplay with the little tribbles pinned on their uniforms. So I do understand that. And that is honestly the extent of my knowledge. But now I know where to start.
Yeah. Well, normally I carry my tribbles. I've had tribbles for the past 2 years at the fan table, at the Festus table. I always have the tribbles with me. I have 3. I started out with 3, and I think I've got about 6 now in this little terrarium that I've got that I carry around, which says, "Please do not feed the tribbles."
I was going to say, but they multiply, right?
Right.
So that's appropriate.
right. Isn't that how it works with the Tribble? Yeah.
So occasionally, I also bring my Star Trek bear in because okay. I'll say first off, that means vice president. We use command symbols in our ship instead of saying president, vice president. I'm the captain. I have a first officer. They did a sale on Star Trek bears at Build-A-Bear, and you buy one get one free. So Philip and I went in together. That way the bears would be half price for us, and got the 2 bears, Star Trek bears, and mine's in Captain Kirk outfit. No, his in a science officer outfit, and his is in a security outfit and a red shirt. I also have a Build-A-Bear rabbit that's in a Kirk shirt, and my wife has an Build-A-Bear elephant that's in a red skirt for Uhura, because her Build-A-Bear elephant's female type of thing. So that carries around, and of course the bears are the ones that are supposed to be protecting the tribbles from being fed. So you can always see that. If you noticed, one trivia part is John Delancey is only in Deep Space Nine once. He had a falling out with the people at Deep Space Nine, and it was Kate Mulgrew, who was able to placate Mr. Delancey and bring him in and do Voyager. And John Delancey did it as a favor to her because of their acting in, I want to say, Search for Tomorrow. They were
close friends outside of Star Trek before. Yeah.
Delancey used to be on General Hospital.
General Hospital, excuse me. Brenda knew John Delancey was on General Hospital, as was Kate Mulgrew. That's where their friendship started, was on General
There you go. Bring Brenda on too.
So, she sometimes sits beside. Lately, she because I'm doing the panel. She didn't think she was doing it. So, but that's people saying. I've seen John Delancey. He's an interesting gentleman, type of thing. He can be somewhat funny. There was one time I was at a meeting, and I think Generation and Deep Space Nine was still going on, and right off the bat, people were asking when was he coming back to Next Generation, and when if he was going to do Deep Space Nine, and of course he knew that he had one more in Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. Well, halfway through the thing, somebody who did not begin the thing came in and asked the same question, and he says, "Well, I'm doing 2 Next Generations. 3 for Deep Space Nine, and I'm going to do 5 in the original series. And he's like, the guy was like going, how are you going to do this? He said, well, you missed the question the first time. That was worth you need to get here on time. Type of thing. So, Brent Spiner is real good. We were, like I said, I was at the San Francisco, or at the Cincinnati meeting with him, and he was up there, and of course, he does his little introduction and stuff, and then he takes questions from the floor. Well, they lined the people up, and the first person up is this little girl that's probably 9 or 10 years old, and asked him point blank what he was going to do in Picard. And he played it, says like, and said, looked at it and says, is this your question, or are you asking this question for your dad? And she says, and she points to her dad and says, yeah, I'm asking it for him. And he just looks at the guy and just like, real good play it. You figure I'm not going to disappoint this little girl by not answering her question. So you put her up to, and goes on for like 5 or 10 minutes about how really, this is really, what's he going to do? Because and he finally has to tell the, I'm in the Picard series. That's all I can tell you. So he does a real good job in entertaining and talking about his experience on Star Trek and all the other stuff that he does. I've seen him twice in person, and both times has been a joy. How
do you feel about season 2 of Picard? Do you think we're going to get a Q episode with Guinan getting at it officially? Whoopi Goldberg is coming back, and that's kind of a huge deal between the two of those characters. Maybe we'll see a Q.
Yeah, that's one thing I did. That's one thing we didn't get into the Picard panel or the Picard Mandalorian panel. Guinan being asked. So there's something there which would work very well. The question is always going to be who can come and who cannot, because you're talking money in a sense, because these people are not cheap in doing. John, you can answer more better than how people are paid in this. The more you've done, the more money you can.
Yeah, it goes.
Yeah, and so now
Goldberg.
some of them.
Goldberg, though, is my understanding that was the last character written by Roddenberry was Guinan for Next Generation, the last character he created, and she actually asked to be on that show as a lovely, because she loved the original series. She's a huge Trek fan, so I don't know if money is going to be an issue for her on Picard. I think she would just do it just because she loved that character and loved that show.
That's and if I'm wrong, John, you can please correct me. My understanding is they could do some type of back end give to their charity type of thing.
Sure.
I'll do this if you give so much to my charity.
Right, or you get residuals on the back end if you get paid. Like a lot of these indie films and stuff. Like you can get a SAG minimum, and then like, hey, you get X amount of points on this back end if we sell DVDs or toys or any of that other nonsense.
So see, that's what non-Trek Michael Caine. He does 2 big movies to take care of what he needs to do that year, and then he sort of gives out whatever for these independents.
Sure,
as I understand it.
The big blockbuster for the money, and then you do the 2 art movies for the fun and the love of the game, I guess.
And see, now my understanding with Frakes, because he was directing, he really because he directed the episode he was in.
Right.
He did. They don't have to pay him as the actor; they just pay him as the director in that.
I don't know if that's true or not. I think he gets paid both ways.
So, because it seems like when Jonathan Frakes does his stuff. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's probably whatever his agent worked out. Yeah. I mean, it's
because it seems like any time Jonathan Frakes directs, there's somewhere he gets himself in there.
Sure.
He directed Nathan Fillion in not Quincy. I'm thinking all these detective movies, and I cannot think of the not Murder She Wrote. What?
South, north from the south.
The detective program that he was a writer.
Right.
Castle. And of course, Jonathan Frakes showed up. He played a fan of wanting to get Nathan Fillion's autograph, I think, in that. So he pops up, so he can do that without much problem. But my understanding is sometimes, and some of them do that. They're like, oh, as long as it's small. Now this is just a small walk-in part. They're only like 1 or 2 lines, and they're only going to be there for 2 minutes. Then it's give me $100,000 for my charity, and I'm fine.
Right, day player role.
Like I forget what it was. Oh, John Wayne did the Beverly Hillbillies for a bottle of whiskey.
Yep.
Or bourbon or something.
Yeah, right. Something crazy like that. Yeah, it's not
it has to
entirely
be bourbon because there is a bourbon whiskey out there that's called the Duke.
right.
It's off of John Wayne, and so that's that's the so it's had to be bourbon whiskey that he did for doing Beverly Hillbillies as himself. So there's part of it's probably the SAG rules, how SAG does things.
Sure.
Because
But there's different contracts for different things. I mean, it's if you're going to be a series regular versus just a day player or a background guy. I mean, there's all kinds of different rules, and I mean, there's got to be a set minimum, but anything beyond that gets worked out later on.
Right. So, I think to pay Picard or Sir Patrick for his work, part of it's he's like a producer or something on the Picard show. So that gives him a little more extra for instead of just so they can't pay because they couldn't pay him for what he had, so they had to pay him a producer.
Right.
Type of thing. There's that. It's always wondering. I'm not sure. So depends on how much they want to put these people in. We did talk about at the Picard meeting about wanting more for Geordi shows up.
I think anytime you do a nostalgia act like Picard, though, you want everybody to show up. And I think if they would have done it in the first season, it would have been too much in an overkill. Like, everybody expects him to go, okay, I got to run out into space. Like, you're not just going to get a starship and get your old crew back together. I mean, that's Captain Kirk would be able to pull that off. But yeah, no, not Picard. I think they got to save something for that next season or that third season.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and of course the thing is like, okay, we want to do this, and I think like which was not discussed in the Picard, was partly discussed, but in my thinking on the Picard thing is they had so much stuff in there is because they were throwing everything up on the wall to see what stuck.
Sure.
And they're going to look and say, okay, this episode did well, this episode didn't. What do we keep? What do we throw? And then what was good, then they'll write the second season from what is there.
The guest starring of Frakes and Marina Sirtis. We'll do that again next season. People love the Borg. Let's use that again next season. Oh, okay, well, if they like the nostalgia act, we'll use Guinan again. But I think, again, that was more of a Patrick Stewart just putting her on the spot on The View or whatever that was. But
yeah.
Say no, I mean.
Yeah, I
about that. I love the fact that Q's or Guinan's going to be around again.
Yeah. With what Patrick Stewart does, and I think that's part of the thing, I always felt like part of Picard, even though it didn't come out, was that they were trying to touch on the PTSD aspect. And Sir Patrick has been walking that because of his father's PTSD and the problem that his father and his mother went through. His mother was a battered wife because his father in that term was in shell shock from the war and would beat her. And of course, in that timing frame, it was like, well, don't make him mad. which is the wrong thing to say. So, and Patrick Stewart is working both sides of the fence because it was a problem from both sides. It was
Sure.
a woman who should not be beaten because of what him doing, but it's also a guy who needed help because he came back from the war with some problems. And I think that's one of the things they were trying, especially with the because the way that the conversation between 7 and 9 and him being I never can say that name right, Locutus, and his still dealing with that, which I can believe, because he saw he was in charge of the destruction at Wolf 357 or 359. I don't know why I always say 357. It's the 359, which is an actual place in space. Check your star maps, and you will actually find Wolf 359 on a spacecraft.
Thank you, Andrew Boreanaz, for being the technical advisor on all the Star Trek show.
Yeah. Personally, I don't think Deep Space Nine gets enough credit for what it did.
I don't think so either.
I think it's finally people find. The problem is the Star Trek fans have grown up enough that they now realize what was going on in Deep Space Nine. I think they were a little put off by the space station in the original, and they didn't know where it was going. It is a great character study. Both sides of men and women, a father figure, a soldier. There's so many nice character studies and well-rounded. It's sad that they did so well in Deep Space Nine, and then they turned around and did Voyager, and they totally screwed up the Janeway character, in my opinion.
I don't know, man. I think with Voyager over the years that I've watched it with Kelly, my wife to be, and it's her favorite show. She really gravitated, and I noticed a lot of the younger Star Trek fans in their teens like Voyager more than some of the older guys like us.
Yeah.
I don't know what the reasoning would be, but they just, and I've gone back and watched it, and it's like I finally appreciate it, I think, now more than I did when it aired.
I liked Voyage, I really do. There is just certain problems throughout it. The one that I really am disappointed in is the Janeway character, because they tried to keep her a strong character, a strong female lead character, which Kate Mulgrew can do in spades. But they kept trying her to do this motherly thing.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, she doesn't need to be a mother. You throw that to somebody else. Throw that to Roxanne or B'Elanna Torres, or at the time Kez. They could have done that if they kept the mother figure with Kez, they would have been fine. But every time they brought this mother figure in it ruined the Janeway character.
I don't know, if you were going to try and make somebody into the mother character, I think the holographic doctor would have developed better into that kind of role. Like, he started out the jerk with no bedside manner, and progressively through the seasons would have become the more understanding ship's counselor, almost the Deanna Troi of the ship.
Yeah. Good character development with Robert Picardo's doctor. That was a good character development. 7 and 9 is a good character development. The B'Elanna Torres character was very good character development. That angst side, we saw that human versus Klingon side much better than we ever saw it, I thought, in Spock. I think the writing was very good in there. But then you have the Tuvok character, and half the time I don't think they knew what to do with it. Because they didn't want to have the science off. They wanted to have the security guard, which to me seems that Tuvok or Tim Russ gets typecast, because there was Journey to the Center of the Earth that he was the security guard in that one.
He was the We Ain't Found Squat guy in Spaceballs.
Well, but that's a security guard.
He was a security guy even in Spaceballs.
In Spaceballs, this guy gets typecast.
That's a piece of trivia for you. Yes, Lieutenant Tuvok was the guy with the hair pick in Spaceballs. The We Ain't Found blank.
Yeah. So we forget that. he pops up as Tuvok pops up as a security guard. We did well. Harry Kim, another one that they should at least have promoted him to a lieutenant before the end of the season. Yeah, he did become captain of the ship.
Harry Kim and Chakotay were the two characters they just did nothing with the whole 7 year.
Yeah, and I think that was Robert Boltram was really like, well, can't you do something with my character?
Useless.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is they were trying to have an Indian culture, but they didn't want to offend Indians.
Sure.
And so they tried to take all these different, instead of just trying to get one type of Indian. And actually, I read somewhere like, if he did this, there was something, I forget what, there's the medicine wheel and his spirit animal, and there was something else.
Two totally different cultures in the Indian.
And they sort of would not actually work together.
Sure, two different ideologies, I guess.
Yeah, and it just, there was a couple times that they were doing that. And it's like, okay, you wouldn't have those if you were in this type of industry. If you had that, you wouldn't do this. And
poor Madeline has just stepped back and was like, just in awe of the nerdness that is going on right here.
I hope Mark is having Mark Burgess is doing well.
We're about to wrap it up. Did any questions actually come in? Is that?
No, I didn't see anything. Mark did say that Shatner moderated the Back to the Moon and Beyond with NASA panel for Comic-Con at home today. So I guess, everybody has gone virtual this year. And,
yeah.
Comic-Con must have heard that we were having ours this weekend, so they didn't want, they wanted to try to get in with the competition.
Darn, you wave your fist of anger at San Diego. Darn.
Yeah, I saw that. But the problem is, this is free. Where Comic-Con, I think you had to pay a little bit to see their videos.
This is the problem. This is why I don't hang out with Mark Adam Miller or Brenda, his lovely wife, because it's going to be like a 2-hour conversation that nobody else gets.
Well, I'm sure we all gleaned something from it, and I got some of my questions as, a total newbie to the Star Trek universe. So, it's not that I don't like it. I've always wanted to, watch it, but it's one of those things. It's kind of like if somebody who's not familiar with Doctor Who, they're like, well, where do I start? And you're like, that's an interesting question.
There's like roughly 1,000 hours of Star Trek now. I mean, if you watched every episode,
it's like it takes like 23, 24 days to, if you constantly watch it from one start to finish, it would take like 24 days to watch it all.
178 episodes for 3 different series, and then you got the 3 seasons of Discovery and all the other cartoons and the movies, and you almost got about 1,000 hours worth of Star Trek now.
Well, I was about to say, in the last 2 minutes, we actually got into the Stump the Trekkie part where you're like, it would take you 23 days to watch it.
Well, every time a series, you keep having to add a day.
Right.
Each season. Yeah, Picard added 10 hours.
Yeah, right.
Discovery, with Discovery, you've got another 26 hours there.
Yeah, To Bowley Go is going to start. That's another 10 hours, Captain Pike.
Yeah, and you got the short treks, which are like 10 minutes long. So you've got another hour and a half there. So, every time you turn around, you're going to do everything. And that's just canon. Then you got the fan stuff that there's some fan stuff out there you need to go watch.
The cartoons, I mentioned the cartoons.
Basically you're telling me is I should have started watching Star Trek at the beginning of quarantine, and that I might be somewhere not close to done by now. So you're telling me that's the thing I should have binged?
Probably. If you started at the beginning of quarantine, you probably would have been 3/4 of the way through by now.
Madeline, I tell you, like my fiance, she was a diehard Doctor Who person, and Voyage corrupted her to Star Trek.
Okay. All right.
She loves Voyager. She loves Janeway, man, and
Uh,
and then she started watching all the other stuff.
Now, the only problem with Doctor Who, I'm sorry to say, is you can't see all of Doctor Who. Some of it's missing.
Yeah.
And the sad part about it is most of it's the Patrick Crossington years.
Mm.
Because the BBC used to recycle the film, didn't they? And they would just re-record over their stuff. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the old Monty Python stuff was lost too. Some
Right.
of the Flying Circus. Because
Now, there's been some things found in Australia.
Oh, wow.
And they're trying to see if they're starting to scrounge Australia and Canada to see if possibly they can come up with some of the stuff that's lost. They did find, I think, one Patrick Crossing or two Patrick Crossing episodes down in Australia, and a William Hartnell reel that they had been missing. So
That's pretty awesome.
So it's just, and there's always a possibility. You know, we think that home video starts about in the 1980s because I forget which one, but surprisingly, there are some people who actually did have reel-to-reel videotapes in their home. So
you never know. It's out there somewhere. Somebody's got it.
yeah.
All right. Do you have any closing remarks?
So, well,
Mandalorian.
I suggest I'm president of the local U.S. Festus Club. We do have a meeting the second and fourth Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Check out our Facebook page. It's always up on there, USS Hephaestus. If you can't spell Hephaestus and it's like, how do I spell that? Go look up Vulcan and ask for the Greek god's name. Hephaestus is the Greek god of the forge, like Vulcan is the Roman god of the forge. So it's Hephaestus. Always check. You can always check me out on Facebook as well. Feel free to message me, and I will get you that. Check out our newsletter. The latest newsletter is pinned always to the top. July newsletter is on NASA. So if you want to know some information about NASA, check out the newsletter.
I'm still here, but I've done something to my computer. But I just thanks for having me. Always have a good time.
Yeah, it's been a great day, and I think all of the other ones are finished. Y'all are the last panel of the day, so I hope y'all enjoyed yourself as much as we did here. And again, thank you for participating, even though I know we are in very strange times. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and
Always a pleasure.
Madeline,
right,
Mark Adam Miller, peace and long life.
Long and prosper.
Indeed.
Bye.
See you guys.